Well, esteemed panelists, welcome once again. Well, we've started with the lunch, but of course I'd like to ask your opinion. How was your lunch? Was it pleasant? It was quite pleasant. Have you eaten your lunch? I've eaten a little bit. I wanted to eat some desserts, but since I'm a diabetic person, that's why I couldn't. Okay, sometimes my voice is being interrupted. We ate a little, but of course, thanks to this chat and conversation, we feel fuller. Yes, of course, the importance of our lunch comes from the chat we have along with that. I'd like to congratulate SteelOrbis. It's a very crowded meeting. However, there were no problems on the lunch service. So Murat Bey is increasing the bar each and every year. But I believe that there are those who are afraid of their wives and could not eat much, like me. Gökhan, I guess you haven't eaten your lunch, huh? Well, we'd like to thank our sponsors because, of course, everything here is a cost. And as a Kayseri person, I'd like to have the doggy bag as well to take it to my home. There were no imported wine. We had to bring our own local wine, but we'd like to thank everyone. We have to support the local industry, local production. That's why there is local wine. So the agenda of the session is to make some analysis. In current conditions, we have to take some dynamic decisions, and in the changing market environment, we know that it is really difficult to forecast the near future. It is much more important. As you all know, COVID-19 pandemic has changed the supply chain on this steel production. And relatively, we have become accustomed to this pandemic, but then there came Russian-Ukrainian occupation and nuclear war probability, Third World War probabilities, they were discussed. But we wish that it's not going to happen, and it doesn't seem to be the case. I don't know whether I'm wrong. Because of the time limitation, I need to say this. You're going to have certain time limitation, but of course you can ask for taking the floor whenever you want. So if you allow me, I'll start with you, Tayfun. So the first question is like a general introductory question. In the last year, because of the problems that you all know, I'm talking about the Ukrainian and Russian tension, what have been the most important factors affecting the industry and the market? Our friends have talked about them in detail up until this time. For instance, electricity and natural gas prices have increased, and steel producers and steel consumers are affected by that. Can you share your take on this? How much energy share has increased in the steel production, and what do you think about this issue? What could be done? I don't know, but Urbay maybe mention. What can you say? Urbay has already mentioned it, but there is no solution. Of course, it's not like that. There is solution, but the world has been divided into two in terms of energy prices. On the eastern part, it is cheap. On the western side, it is expensive, and Turkey is on the expensive side of it. And even internally in Europe, when you have a look at energy prices, northern part of Europe is more expensive than south. So the energy prices is lower in Spain, but in Germany it is much more expensive. So the USA is a self-sufficient country in terms of energy. I haven't checked the latest prices there, but prices have recessed after their first jump. We think that this is related to Russian-Ukrainian war, but there is also the Fed interest rate increase. Ur has also mentioned that as well. Yes, we're going to have this process all together. From my own perspective, when I compare it with the Western side, yes, we are expensive, but we are not that expensive. We are a bit expensive compared to some places. We are at the same level in certain places. Well, this is something that we're going to experience all together. Unless we experience it, we can't see the situation. And it's not going to happen overnight. And even if we receive support from the government, there are question marks on my mind. Europe is the biggest market for exportation. When I ask something from the government, or else when the industry asks for something from the government, they say that it is CVD, and they add additional taxation. I'm not talking about anti-dumping at all. And two markets that we make the most exportation have taken precautions against us. So everyone says that. But it is Secnik 232 is going to be lifted or not. Actually, it's only valid for Turkey. Europe has found its own way. America has changed its own way, but certain things have changed. In the beginning of the year, like you have mentioned, market is going on very well, especially in March. I'm sure that all my friends sitting in this chair, when this Ukrainian-Russian war outbroke, they thought that 3 million, 5 million trade volume would be eliminated. And I'm talking independent of the costs, because we were not talking about the cost. Cost was only discussed in August. Everyone was rushing. It was like 1,000, 1,200, 1,300. The ones who were buying materials for $1,000 became regretful after a couple of months. Okay, we got over this problem. Then there came energy prices, and we were in a difficult situation for the cost. So all in all, this is something that we are going to experience one way or another. We have to manage it. Well, actually, Veysel has mentioned certain things very roughly, but he spoke about that. Energy cost is not the problem of today. It's been the problem of the last 7 to 8 years. Inflation has been managed wrong interest increase, wrong inflation data. These have brought us to this point. And after Russian-Ukrainian war, it's just exploded. Even though the cost side was not to be balanced, but we would be solving this problem. Steel iron producers are never afraid of losing money because they know their positions. They continue their production after the FX sits on a balanced structure. But from this perspective, I think the situation is very different. You have raw material cost of $500, and you make the production in a price that you can't find in any other place in the market, and you have to submit the order in the same month. For that reason, in Europe, many electrical arc mills were closed. So when the demand comes back, prices will go to a certain level. By the way, nobody is pleased of lower prices. In the USA, flat steel prices reached up to 2000s, but it's not something that is going on right now. Prices should be reasonable, manageable, but first and foremost, there should be demand for it. Well, you're right. Kerem, last year, for a while, it was between 1,000 to 1,500 hot rolled mills prices. Yes, when everything is good, we can take precautions for future. That is okay. And Ur, I guess you have also mentioned the same. You are right. We couldn't imagine that this would be the case in today's conditions. There is fall and rise all the time. But when we see $1,500, this is a huge difference than the normal conditions. Unfortunately, this is the case, and we are in today's world. Let me talk about this dilemma here, and we are always open among ourselves. So what was the price of the cost? Was it 1,600? In the past, we were selling based on the market conditions, but right now everybody is selling based on the market costs conditions. So you have to choose either of it. Otherwise, your customers could be in a very difficult situation. I'd like to say a few words about your question for Typhoon. Energy is hitting us. Yes, Russia, Ukraine, these are not only energy for Turkey because they were big markets for our hot rolled products as well. So we had 2-3 tons of importation, but we don't feel that gap right now because the demand has dropped significantly. And energy effect is very high. I agree with Typhoon. There is 2 pacts right now, like East and West. And let me give you this additional information. Our competitor, for instance, in the market, one of the biggest competitor is South Korea, receives electricity 50% cheaper than us in the industrial production. You've asked what was the reflection over the costs. I'm sure that as electrical arc furnace person, it has affected Typhoon's company more than mine. Energy ratio in the past was 20%, but right now it's increased up to 40%. And we don't know about the future. This is the worst situation. We try to make sales to February, March, but the prices are not certain for that month period. In terms of CDC, I don't agree with you, but we are paying 3 times higher than household. And in the natural gas, we are paying 6 times higher. Steel, iron, and glass industries, we pay way higher than other places. I'm not criticizing a policy here, but we have to pay the due together. We have to collect the fruits together. Everything should be made together. So what can be done? What can we do here? Personally speaking, companies should be focusing on their energy efficiency investments in terms of renewable energy investments. Certain incentives could be made by the state. I think this could be a good idea. And this is something that I don't know. I'd like to ask this question. Natural gas prices, household, residential natural gas prices, and the one that is applied on the industry. How was it in the past before these problems occurred? A year ago, electricity was 3 times, but a year ago it was 2 times higher. And natural gas was 3 times higher, but right now this is 6 times higher. I'm only talking about a year period. If we go back than that, we can see lower difference. You might say this is very natural to have difference. Of course, this is natural because there's going to be election, yes, but Southern Korean producers can buy electricity 50% cheaper than us. And they also buy natural gas way cheaper than us. That's why we are losing in our competitive advantage strength. Well, can you also inform us about the numbers for 2021? What has happened in the industry? What can you say? Exportation, production, what was the effects? Mic is off. So we actually aimed at 10% growth in our production. However, it was 4.5 million tons of production at the end of this year. This is based on the 10th month figures, but in the first 10 months numbers, our exportation as of the end of the year, 6% of increase is going to be realized. Pipe production is 4,700,000 tons. and 500,000 of its big diameter spiral pipes, and our exportation is going to be 200 tons, and $2.2 billion is the monetary equivalent of it. And in the EU, based on the recent developments and with the recession expectations in that environment, for this year and for the upcoming years, our exportation is going to be revised. This is affecting us as well, especially spiral pipe side. This is very important for our sector. Spiral pipe side is going to be shrunk because spiral pipes in the exportation, it requires state support, because as a result of the discussions with the delegations, agreements could be reached and deals could be made, and then sales could be possible. Steps in the Middle East will be very crucial in that respect. In Turkey, spiral pipe producers have big problems because it's based on FX dollars. I mean, they buy raw materials by dollars, but BOTAŞ and İller Bank, when they sell them to the municipalities, they sell it with Turkish money currency. So there is a big loss because of the FX difference. For that reason, spiral pipe producers are retreating, are avoiding from giving some offers. Steel pipes are used in the constructions. So general economic shrinkage, and in the automobile sector, there is a huge utilization of the steel pipe. So the general outlook is affecting our industry's structure as well. Well, we'll see in the next couple of months, years. We'll take different measures. Maybe we can discuss them later on. We'll see the future. Yes, we're going to revise everything. When you say spiral, you're talking about those big diameter natural gas pipes. When it's over 400 millimeters, this is called as spiral pipes. They are used in water transmission lines or natural gas transmission lines. Isn't it like state tenders, like in the foreign countries, like in TANAP project, for instance? In the past, TANAP project, as you all know, was also going through Turkey. Internationally or inter-provincially, these pipes are used for water transfer, water transmission, natural gas transmission. Well, you mentioned one thing. Because of the FX difference, currency difference, in order for us to get over this problem, there should be incentive from the state. In terms of price, have you observed any benefits, or else is it just a standard price? Well, yes, the price, if it's going to be local or else international, bought from the same price, standard price. And many institutions in Turkey, most of them are like state affiliations, like municipalities, İller Bank, BOTAŞ. Our deals are based on Turkish currency. And recent years, there has been huge FX differences. And because of that reason, we've come across with big problems. We are in discussion with the Ministry of Finance, but we haven't received a satisfactory response from them. So people are, spiral pipe producers are avoiding from offering. These are long-term projects. That's why they are under big effects. So if it is 2 months, then you don't talk about the FX difference. So you give the offer as of today, and after 2 months, the decision is taken, and this is a very long-term project. That's why it creates problems. Gökhan Bey, as you all know, there is a demand shrinkage on the market along with the pandemic. There came disruptions on the supply chain, and in the past we had container problems, and then there came concerns triggered by the Russian-Ukrainian wars, and the prices peaked. So were you expecting this? Yes, I was expecting that. Can you make a comparison compared to the previous year? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank SteelOrbis family for this great organization. I'd like to thank all the sponsors, and I wish all the participants to very healthy, beautiful days. Well, in the morning session, we discussed important data from the world and Turkey. Uğur, Barış, and Hussein gave great insight about the industry, and you asked whether I was expecting this or not. In the raw material sectors, supply and demand is always the determinant of the price. And during the outbreak of the pandemic, there was a sharp decline on the prices. And after that, along with the production decline, market took the prices up. And there came the Russian-Ukrainian war. Turkey and the close geography couldn't make importation from Ukraine and Russia. By the way, these are two important countries for us. For certain things to rise or fall, there should be certain factors behind them. Ukraine and Russia are important importation countries to us. That's why supply would go down and demand would stay fixed. Prices would go higher. We had the philosophy to buy it from advance. Demand was taken to advanced levels, like facility with 30 days of stock, or 20 days of stock, or 60 days of stock. Think that I need to buy this, otherwise I won't find it in the upcoming months, or else it's going to be much more expensive. That's why they bought it in advance. They had big stocking. And this is not only valid for Turkey, by the way, this is valid for other markets as well. After the stock swelling, like you have mentioned beforehand, we are not saying that it has fallen down, but we are saying that it has been corrected. These are the terminologies of the stock exchange partners. So it's like 600, 650, or else was it lower than that? It was like 1,200, 600, 650, 630, 650. It's not 600, but 630, 650. There were certain objections. Okay. And in the morning session, Veysel has touched upon it, but I'd like to also talk about the flat steel side. In the upcoming 2 months, if there's not going to be a big decline, we're going to be closing the year with the previous year's number. So 10% decline in the flat steel production will not be as hard as in the long steel. I think if there is no absurd figure in the upcoming 2 months, will be the same with the previous year, or else will be 1%, 2% lower than the previous year. And very generally, I'll talk about the exportation, importation, and production in the flat steel. Yes, it's only specific to flat steel. Exportation is going down. Then we have a look at the 11th month. 21% is exportation on the hot flat, and flat coat it's 28, and on the coated it's 32%. Yes, in the coated there is 32% volume tonnage decrease in the exportation. As I've said it before, and production is not going to go down very sharp, and on the consumption it's not going to be decreasing very sharp as well. There is a big decrease. There is a bit decrease on the importation. All the products last year in the hot, cold, and coated, there were 6 million of importation number. But statistically speaking, if we just reflect the October figures, over the end of the year, there's going to be 1.5 million decrease on the importation. Okay, Mehmet, after Russian-Ukrainian tension, we have mentioned that there is Eastern Asian suppliers and Western suppliers. Have you observed any behavioral changes, differences? What can you say about that? Is it affecting our foreign trade? What can you say? Actually, before coming to this day, I think we have to be having a retrospective look at the previous 2 to 3 years. Hot rolled was not at the level of 500. It was reaching to 500, then it was going back again. During the pandemic, there were increase, and because of this supply problem, there were an abnormal increase period. After the pandemic, we slowly started to enter into this slowing down, this narrowing period. Till the war, it was different, but the war was a surprise. Nobody was expecting that. And Turkey here, in terms of supply, is closest to Russia and Ukraine. These are the most suitable countries for Turkey. These two countries were in war with one another. Naturally, everybody got panicked. And as Gökhan has stated, everybody was anxious. They were afraid of not finding raw materials. And in that respect, prices increased up to $1,300. Well, again, was it wrong? I mean, that panic. Actually, it was quite proper because when I have a look at the statistics, I can understand that Russian exportation to Turkey decreased, and that exportation is going to decrease in the future more and more. We discussed it with Aydin. There's nothing coming from Ukraine. Nothing, no. And in the upcoming years, it's not going to be different at all. Yes, everybody was right of getting panicked, but there was something that we couldn't calculate in the steel industry. There was this Chinese factor. Unless you calculate China, it means that you are wrong all the time because fall and the rise come from China. Yes, we were anxious about the war. The prices were increasing, but I've looked at the local prices in China. There was no local price increase in China, even in the war period. The prices were the same. We said that we wanted to increase it with the war, but the Chinese exportation numbers increased because of the demand from this side. China was very steady. Actually, there was no energy crisis, and Chinese internal market were getting stagnant. And Turkey has lost its biggest suppliers. Russia in September, they're going to ask if you use Russian raw material, then you can't make exportation. We are going to lose again. And in Turkey, after the midst of the upcoming year, we might have supply pressure. But in today's circumstances, we don't have the possibility to have such thing because as this gap is observed, then Far Eastern countries fill in this gap because there is no energy crisis brought by this war, and there is no growth triggered by this war in China. Hussein Bey has mentioned that in the morning, in the COVID processes, there came some slowing down on the construction industry. For them to increase their prices, there is not going to be any possibility in this aspect. West and East, I think we talk different things because on one side, we are talking about energy war, but on the other side, stagnance and also slowing down or else living the normal life. Actually, they get benefit out of this situation because they receive cheaper gas from Russia. Most of the raw material of Russia goes to China. So China's importation will increase, but we're not going to be sending any material to China. Russia is going to export to China. So don't we receive semi-finished goods from China. Well, at least for my own company, I can say that we haven't received anything, and we are not sending anything to China. We're going to be dealing it. Logistics and handling of this will be much more difficult. We'll use other sources to bring materials to Turkey. Well, about the sanctions, it's not clear definition. Everybody is talking about sanctions, but these are not crystal clear. So when that's the case, if you make business with Europe and the United States, our exportation goes to these regions. We don't know next day what's going to happen. You said that before, and you can't sell this if you use Russian raw materials. Maybe they might say this. As of September, is there a sanction about the semi-finished products? Yes, there is a sanction, but it is not clear, certain yet. Well, did we know Trump would bring second 25% over us? We didn't know that. So we can't forecast what they would do us in the future. America applied quotation system to Europe, for instance. Çolakoğlu or flat steel producers in Turkey were a bit luckier because we captured the quotation in the upper levels, but for the others, for the construction steel, that quota was filled in a single day, if I'm not mistaken. So the sanctions here are going to affect us, but how? We don't know that answer. So for that reason, this is the decision of each and every individual company. Our decision is in favor of not doing business with certain companies. Well, we paid a visit to a Netherlands company, and they told us that there is a material that they buy from Russia. They just, I guess they were coated companies, yes, cold rolled coating business in Holland. They said that we can't touch this material. It was under quarantine. No one in Europe wanted to buy this product for the 6 months. So it was closed for 6 months. This processed good, the paid good is not given to anyone. I guess companies take their own initiatives based on what they feel or hear. So the ones who say, I don't want to be buttered, they're not going to do anything, I guess. But this is double standard, right? Because Europe says that slab and low importation is free. Russians can send this to us, but we don't know what they're going to do in Turkey. This is a double standard. We don't know what's going to happen. Customers in Europe are not aware of it as well. It's not only peculiar to us. Customers in Europe don't know this. They don't know what to do. Well, I can make an addition. This is valid for the products as well. You said that after September, according to EU Commission, there's going to be a sanction, but interpretation of it is different. Companies, investors, importers make different interpretation out of it. This is a product. Well, there's 500 people here. They're speaking at the same time, and it's not understandable. So if it's a glass out of steel, you have to change the GITIP number, but EU Commission law that is going to be enacted in September says you can't change this number. There are different interpretations for it. Well, Gökhan, you have some studies about that. The newly enacted numbers, what is it? In the hot rolled. Can you please talk about those numbers? In the literature, there is no galvanized cold, only the hot production, like in other countries. We make hot rolled flat steel production. last year number was 14,600,000 tons. Flat steel, in quotation marks, flat steel. And last year we discussed it as well. Companies making production have some capacity increases. So here, in the upcoming 3 to 4 years, 8 to 10 million tons of hot rolled increase will occur. This is already mentioned to the media by the company representatives, and 1 million tons of production increase will be available in Turkey. I'd like to say a few words about that as well. A lot of things are discussed in different places, but I think this is an important issue to be discussed. It was asked beforehand, as Faruk has asked, internal processing permit issue. Approximately 2 million tons pipe exportation. This is for pipe, welded pipes. I'm going to integrate it with internal processing. So 2 million welded pipe exportation and 2 million tons coated product will be exported. 600,000 tons cold exportation will be made. Okay, so at the very basis of this exportations, unfortunately, again in quotation marks, it's the activity of the internal processing mechanism in the world. So we have to have a function to support this advantage. I'd like to turn to the audience. You can submit your contribution if you have. Last year, we were discussing the capacity increase. As of the midst of this year, possible capacity increase will eliminate capacity need for the flat steel. There's going to be new opportunities for the price and the production. About the capacity increase, especially for the future of the investments, would you like to say a few words? Is there anyone who'd like to make a comment? Our investments, you might say our investments have not been affected. You might also say, let's see and wait. Mike, please. This is an important issue. Thank you very much for giving you the update. I'd like to have the mic. As you all know, as Çolakoğlu, 1.5 million additional capacity is going to be operated, and slab is required for it. On the slab side, biggest supplier of the world is Russia. And the current problem for us is to find a way to use this capacity. We don't have a clear picture before us. Tosylı has 3 to 4 million tons of facility, but scrap is important. We've discussed it in the first session. Current scrap is not in the condition of meeting the needs of hot rolled need. It's not going to meet the need. We don't have the chance to use these capacities. There is this cost side of it. MMK 5 to 6 years stayed as idle. They wanted to work, but it's was only active for a couple of months or period. So this is an important issue. I don't think that this idle capacity could be utilized functionally in the upcoming months. I'm not objecting anything but the current scrap prices. Scrap prices. Yes, you were talking about it. 600, 650. I'm not objecting at 600, 650. We sold it $500 as well. But the prices, low prices and scrap prices were the same for a period. A company in the UK were actually by Turkey, it was taken down to bankruptcy. Yes. So as a person from galvanized, hot milled, hot rolled sector, 1.6 million tons capacity will be coming in the upcoming 2 to 3 years in the cold and coated plates. Sector has been the exporter. In the upcoming 2 years, it's going to be 2 to 3 million tons of exportation if we can export. Yes, I was just going to mention that this is a topic that I wanted to say. I believe that hot rolled colleagues have gone through a different mechanism. So in 2021, consumption was over of the consumption by 2.9 million. Gökhan mentioned 10 million according to our calculations, or according to what Uğur has mentioned, maybe in the short term, 5 to 6 million capacity will be utilized. So in the flat steel, we're going to be exporters. Yes. As a state, as the industry, we have to bring a different perspective to the table. As of this moment, if we go on with Europe and the USA like this, Turkey cannot provide a successful iron steel industry just by making exportation. We have to meet in the halfway with the biggest markets. It's not like we're selling 3 containers to Mogadishu. We are sending 250 tons to Saudi Arabia. No, it's not going to be helping us. Our biggest trade partners is Europe and the USA. We discussed it before, and Russia, Vietnam, Taiwan, India, and China, and Turkey. They ask taxation from these countries and from Turkey as well. 75% of the hot rolled plate is exempt of the taxation by 75%. So the capacity increase should also be evaluated from a different perspective. Our next exporter, Turkish steel and iron industry, can't be successful unless we find a way to make it up with the USA or Europe. We have to find a way. We should just forget anything, whether we are right or wrong. I mean, we have to find a way to make it up with the USA and Europe. This is my understanding from the capacity utilization. So the problems in our exportation with European countries, with the USA, we know it. Is it the result of a misalignment or in compliance with the European countries or America? So Turkey's situation is very difficult. Like gentlemen have mentioned, in energy, there are problems. That's why our competitive advantage is getting weaker and weaker. Biggest problem for us is this overprotection, segregation. Well, energy prices are not the sole responsible for the situation. They are out of function right now. And they made quota deals with Far Eastern countries, Argentina, and also Australia, Europe. There's no problem about that, but there is the solution. What is it? You have to make your investments in the USA. There's no other option. You have to fight against them in their own field. Because here, if we say, yes, we are going to boost our capacity, there's 8 million capacity, but I'm going to make 4 million production, 2 million is going to be sold internally, 2 million is going to be exported. No, it's not a sustainable industrialization model. You can't sell it to Ghana. You can't sell it to South Africa. Who's going to buy it from you? So for that reason, Europe and the USA, we are dependent on them. We have to find a way to make it up with them, or else we have to go to their own field and make investments there. Well, there is a big confusion here. This is what I see. On one side, in Turkey, there's capacity increase, and on the other side, Typhoon says that we have to go out of Turkey. So in Turkey, it means that there are unplanned investments. So in this unplanned structure, state is there. State is not paving the way for us. It's not leading the way for us. New capacity is going to emerge, and I agree with Uğur. It's not possible to commission all the capacity fully because of the sanctions and some other reasons. Market conditions are hinders for these sales. But in spite of that, there are certain things to be made. For instance, producers can work with the state, and steel consumption in Turkey could be forced. How could it be made? Turkey is on an earthquake line, right? So steel construction should be increased on the buildings, at least on the government buildings. Steel is a perfect construction material. If it is used on public buildings like the schools and public institutions buildings, I think it could be boosted because it's very usable. It's a transparent material, like it does not create problems like cement or concrete, but the steel is pure. I mean, working with steel is easier. Steel consumption in Turkey could be triggered. I think for the capacity to emerge, it's going to create some market as well. So the steel sector in Turkey, with its tonnage, with its capacity, is actually locked in a place. It's like confined in a place. There is arc furnaces, integrated surfaces. Almost all of the ore is imported. Scrap is imported. Energy is imported. Our sector is dependent on importation up to 80%. And now we are talking about conservatism and protection. So if we consider everything, maybe different solutions could be brought. Maybe foreign partnership is to be discussed. So companies abroad having raw material can be merged. In Turkey, we can have mergers, partnerships. Is it applicable to our culture? No, impossible. It's very obvious that this kind of mergers, partnerships are not going to be okay, but at least I have to say this. We're talking about some protection precautions, some protective measures. What can you say about them? I don't know about the taxation. I don't know about it. Well, for 10 years, 12 years, I've been dealing with them, but we were in Ankara 10 years ago for the tax exemption. Uğur and Hasan told me that you would put us into a very troublesome situation. I said that let's lift all the tax. The ones who survive will stay alive, others will die. Everybody was going to Ankara all the time. They were asking for protection. they were asking for protective measures. Everybody was saying, protect me, protect me. Okay, let's lift everything. But today, I've changed my mind. Why did I do that? I'm not defending the same thing that I used to do. By the way, I am from the USA. I lived there for 20 years in the USA, and I've been going to the USA with Çolakoğlu for 12 years. I am an admirer of the USA. I'm not their enemy, but this is not okay. If I say that I want to protect my country, if you say that there is a threat for my country's steel, Rahip is the person. It says that 25% more. So what is it? I mean, it's much more confusing right now. So if they protect them, the Europe is the shadow of the America. Canada is satellite of America. They put their own quota system. They develop their relations with them. So everywhere, wherever you go, there is protectionism. So whatever I said 12 years ago, I just want to take them back. Everyone is trying to protect themselves. The prices were $2,000 in the USA, but right now it's 1,300 in Turkey. In the USA, it's now $700. And construction steel was $1,450, but right now it's $1,050. So construction steel in the USA costs for $1,050. Why it's $1,050? Why? Construction steel. This is a Turkish price. No. As Kemal has mentioned, America said that I wanted to protect my own industry, and all the steel construction is made by America. A Turkish manufacturer went back there a year ago, and he is on the state tenders, and he bought everything from the USA, and he fully functions from the USA. This is by America. A Turkish man did this, and he's trying to compete against the Americans there. 10 million tons, both in the flat and in the long. In the last 2 years, there has been severe investments. I guess 15 million has been commissioned. Well, all in all, with the correct protectionism, with the correct strategy of the state, an industry of a country could be developed. Well, whatever you say, this is my thinking. I'd like to make some additions. You asked about the law cases. In 2018, it was Sanction 237 and Safeguard of the USA, anti-dumping law case of Canada, and Europeans anti-dumping law case, and in 2020, our anti-dumping. And again, there's another law court case. I don't want to create any misunderstanding. That's why I'd like to wrap it up. It's not about who is right, who is not right. It's not by America or by Turkish. I'd like to reiterate the number. Within 2 years, 2.5 million downstream galvanized CR, 2.5 million tons. Hot will be produced. Even if we build Chinese wall in Turkey's border, this is not something that we need. We don't need protection. We need something else. America is very strong in the consumption. 7.5 out of 10 cars are sent to Europe, and 60% of the pipes are sent to America or Europe. So unfortunately, we are not self-sufficient. Buy Turkish is not going to save us. Okay, buy Turkish is not going to save us. Even though we know it's very hurting us, it's unfair, but we have to make it up with these markets. We have to shake hands with these markets. I am saying this just to support Kemal. In state tenders, state says that if I finance you, then you're going to use the melted steel in the USA. This is not enforcement. This is the common sense. This is how they manage the processes. Price is at $1,050. It's going to be also happening in the future based on Biden's projects, but there is going to be very important sheet metal production projects. Right now, construction metals and pipes on the ports are very popular. Well, they're important things, like you have stated. In spite of everything, yes, of course, you can make a comment, but mic is needed. It's not audible. That's why we can't interpret it. Well, now everything is obvious. The solution is in the problems itself. Why are we just going around it? The steel milling house, and I can meet the need of the law. Not me, but the sectors itself. Sheet metal producers, they can also meet the need of the flat steel in Turkey. A milling house can meet the need of the sector. We have the capacity to meet the needs of the sector, but we are talking about something else. Well, we have the solution within ourselves. This is simple. Like in the USA or in Europe, we have to supply the needs of the sector from the sectors itself. This is as simple as this. As the industrialists, we can't solve problems. Is it easy to solve these problems? What can you say? Thank you very much, Faruk. It's going to increase in the world. 5 years ago, we were not hearing any exportation from Malaysia or Indonesia. So their capacities do increase. Other countries do increase their capacities. Everybody wants to produce their own products. They want to be away from importation. By 50% finished product exportation, you can't make sustainable production. Like Faruk has mentioned, if the exportation is with high tech, okay, let's use local production. But imported goods are defenseless against competition. They're not added value products. Okay, let's buy it from the local producers. There's no discussion about it. If you can buy it, you have to. If you can buy it from the local and compete against other countries, why you should wait for 3 months, 5 months to buy it from China and Russia? There's no need to discuss this, but the problem is that in the products that we produce, we have to compete in the pipe and in the sheets, everything we have to compete. If we can provide it, that's okay. If you can sell cars like America, there's no problem. But our main problem is that we can't find our way in the competition. That's all. Well, okay. I guess you were about to say something about the protectionism, about these measures for the steel pipe sector. And in the long, of course, there are big measures. But in spite of all this, Turkish steel pipe sector can compete against America for the standard pipes, apply anti-dumping taxation 9 to 14. There's another taxation for 7 to 26. Canada, from the steel to pipe profile, there is anti-dumping around 1% taxation. And in the America, there is dumping taxation 8 to 41%. For other pipes, anti-dumping is between 0 to 35, and also the compensation tax for the OECD pipes are between 2.5%, and for the rolled pipes 12 to 14%, and the compensation taxation is between 0 to 5%, and anti-dumping taxation is between 0 to 37 in Canada. And for the rectangular pipes, there is compensation tax and taxation. It's again 0 to 35%. So steel producers can make exportation. Is it difficult for us? Yes, it is. But still, we make exportation. So in Turkey, this is something that could be applied. All of these years have a price to be paid, and there's a price, as I've stated. So as a steel pipe sector, because of this taxation, we are not afraid. Okay. Internal processing, taxation. Yes. No. Okay, don't talk about it. I'll talk about that later on. Don't change the gears. Okay, Kerem, let me continue with you. In the last year's meeting, we talked about good quality scrap use. Green Deal is going to incentivize the great quality scrap use. I'm emphasizing this green word here. I'll ask about that. How is it going to affect the future of the sector, especially against China? What kind of scrap work should be made? Is it going to create problems about the scrap supply? We discussed them last year, if you remember. So how is it going to affect the future of our country? About this topic that's going to put scrap sector into difficulty, what kind of actions should be taken? About the Green Deal targets, what can you say? To what extent it's going to be affected? Well, I am a bit pessimistic because everyone I believe knows that the coal-based production will continue, but the Green Deal is very much insistent on there are targets as well. And is it for the sake of European producers? What can you say? Well, of course, Green Deal is something proper, but there's also the sectoral structures. Sector should survive. In Germany, I guess they don't compromise of coal use. There are some loans, credits about it. Well, we applied for the green loan. We were given the first green loan. What do you think about this? We discussed it, and Muammer gave a very detailed presentation, but I only remember the green word, that's it. I don't know anything else. So what is the priority according to you about this Green Deal? I think this is a rather important topic. I think green transformation is going to be one of the most important priorities. This is the green of the trees and also the green of the dollar as well. So this is not only about climate or else carbon dioxide emission. Well, rather than talking about commercial law cases, we'll be talking about clean steel or dirty steel in the court cases in the future. CBAM is going to be applied in 2026. Actually, 2026 is as close as tomorrow. Who's going to manage the CBAM? If you have carbon emission in your supply chain, then you're going to be applied taxation. And in other geographies, it's going to have its repercussions. Well, on one side, this is a technological protection method. And not to confuse you, I would like to recommend you 5 important items as association. And this is a very complicated issue, by the way. Ministries, commerce, trade, industry, environment, there are a lot of stakeholders, and I'm actually concerned that they are not acting fast. Very swiftly, Turkey should come up with its own emission trading system. And this emission trading system should be parallel to Europe. And in this emission system, the taxation in the carbon emission, it should be uniformed parallel to the European countries. Because if there's a difference, then we have to pay tax on the entry. So the national income will be in different places. Polluters pollute as much as they do. And the fourth one is that tax collected from here should be used for transformation projects in the sector. And last but not the least, the fifth item, renewable unlicensed energy investments should be supported by the state. So these 5 items are crystal clear. I think all industries and the ministries should focus on these actions. Otherwise, 3 years from now on, we'll have some problems. A couple of years from now on, our refrigerators, our pipes will be affected by that. Well, yes, you are right. We should take precautions, but we have to be a bit early. We should not be late, especially this fourth item. I mean, this fund, this tax to be collected in a very transparent manner should be used for renewable or green investment projects. There is a bomb waiting to be exploded. It's not only for iron steel producers, this is also affecting the consumers, customers. This is important. We are underlining its importance all the time. But as I've stated before, and 5 recommendations of yours are very crucial, but we have some targets, don't we have? In working groups, there are some parallel studies going on, but at the focal point of these 5 recommendations, I don't think that we are going a long way. We are going fast. Are there any targets of the EU? Yes, these targets are already set, and they're going to be initiated as of 2026. What's going to happen in 2026? Well, they say that if hot-rolled safeguard will be lifted, anti-dumping will be lifted. It says that Çolakoğlu or Erdemir. Okay, you use blast furnace, and we know that this is the generic emission of the blast furnace. Then yes, if you want to export, then you are going to pay for 50 euros or something for the CBAM, carbon border taxation. then at that precise moment, I think we have to take precautions. As Turkey, we will take precautions. Okay, Gökhan, what is the structural problem in the sector we have been discussing for many years? What is the structural problem? Well, on the flat steel side, structural problems. What are those structural problems? Well, these are not problems per se. Internal processing regime or many agencies uttered when they paid a visit to Ankara. Kerem has also mentioned its importance. It's not only about hot, also in the galvanized and cold. Our effort to increase production tonnage becomes very important, and also our exportation in the flat steel, 75 to 80% of it goes to the USA and the EU. Anti-dumping and some other terms. We don't know if it's going to be available or not. Well, actually, this is hot rolled tonnage increase 3 to 5 years or 7 years ago, what we were discussing. In some years, we needed 5 million tons of internal processing regime raw materials. We turned them into pipes or galvanized products or hot or cold milled. So if there is a magic button here, then let's say 5 million hot rolled production capacity emerges tomorrow. Can we have a position to set the price on the international arena? I think this is something that we can discuss. And Onur has mentioned that beforehand. Production increases in the short term, and this recession period can't be commissioned very fast. This is good news, I think. In the upcoming year, production capacity is not going to increase very fast. This is good news. But also, there comes another thing about protectionism. I'd like to say a few words. In Turkey, what should be the price of a product? Let's say sheet metal or flat steel. We are an exporting country. So galvanized, hot, rolled, doesn't matter. Producer, distributors, and then our customer wants to use flat steel to make agricultural machinery. So the pricing here, if it is over the world pricing level, then it's not possible for our customers to make exportation. Protectionism is okay to a certain extent, but in Turkey, price levels should be in Turkey's standards. So about that, as Turkey, we made a huge timing mistake. And Kerem has mentioned that beforehand in Far Eastern countries, 900, and Mehmet also has mentioned that Chinese prices increased by us. And then as the actors in this region, we increased the prices up to 800, 900. It's not only Turkey, but also for European region, we made a big pricing mistake. 3 to 5 months ago. We are still suffering from those problems. I just wanted to say that. Okay, thank you, Mehmet. Well, I was just going to object to that because Gökhan said that they can't be successful in the exportation. Haven't you said that? No, I didn't say that, but are we ready for it? Just let's say I am a hot rolled producer. I can sell it for $1,000. Huh? I can't give it to $700. If it is 1,000, if I have customer, then I can sell it because they might buy it from Russia. So this is the problem. Okay, you can buy it from $700. There's no objection. But the problem here is that if it is $1,000 in Russia, if Russia exports it for $700, then there comes the unfair competition, unjust competition. In '88, I was in Japan and I asked them, Toyota and Tucson, it was not Nissan, by the way. I asked the prices of two automobiles. It was 1990. They gave me a price. I got shocked. I asked, do you pay for this money to buy a car? And they said, yes. But I said, do you make exportation? And in the USA, Toyota was sold in this price. And they said that for us to make exportation, I have to buy it for a higher price. So this is the mentality of Japan. Of course, I mean, this mentality changed after that because America applied anti-dumping in just application. So they stopped Dawson, Nissan cars exportation. Then what did the Japanese do? They went to Arizona. They built a Toyota company in Oklahoma. They built their own factories. Yeah. So all the cars are produced in the USA. And what the USA, the Americans do, they bought their companies there and they have partnership. So everything is intermingled. But the biggest problem here is that there is unjust competition. But this is the cost in Russia. $700. It's not important how much it costs. It's the important thing is how much they sell it in their own countries. Well, you can just see it yourself in Korea, in Japan. Okay, Mehmet, would you like to say something? Well, the structural problems, we talk about it all the time. What is it? In the long production, this is a big difference compared to the flat steel. So our biggest problem is that we are not dwelling on the details of the issue. We produce too much long steel, but we still import long steel. We don't know what it is consumed the most. When we say long, we talk about the logs and also the construction steel. But European countries sell per machine to us for 1,000 euros, for instance. What is this product? What is the breakdown of it? We are not dwelling on the details. So the same problem occurs in the flat steel. Well, on the flat steel, galvanized production has started. When we built this factory, Mehmet Metil came to us in the beginning of the MMK. They said, are you crazy? Where are you going to sell this product? Then we started. Production consumption increased. Then we continued without making exportation. So when I have a look at the newly founded galvanized production facilities, they are all copy pastes. None of them thinks that we already import this in from Europe, so let me replace it with that. No. So we need a higher common sense and we need evaluations. We need to understand that So we should not make the same mistakes in the flat steel. And in the long run, we should stop making the same mistakes again and again. We have to work on the data. This is the biggest problem. We don't have data. So how much we can sell, what quality we need, we have to work on the data. Based on that, investment permits should be granted. Well, yes, in a detailed manner. They should be discussed with the production departments. Production could be easy, but the sales could be less in lots. This is criticized all the time. In the past, I don't know, 15 to 20 years ago. Well, automobile sector, we are not feeding it with the sheet metal. Yes, okay, they give their orders, but one lot, they buy a part of it and they keep it in the stock because the cost is high. If there is a problem, it still stays on the stock. But by working together, we made an increase on the exportation. But still, this is important. Kerem, there's another issue. We said that there should be local production, local consumption. So if that's the case, there should be standards of the materials to be used in construction. 30 grams coated galvanized should not be on the construction. Otherwise, it's not going to be resilient for over 3 years. So in the construction facility in the USA, I said that I can give you 60. No, he said 285. This is the standard. And he said if I use that galvanized, then I can't be granted my permit. So we have to take measures to boost quality. In the panel, in the MMK, we were selling 0.60 sheet metal, but right now we receive 0.18 from China. There is no standard in any countries. We are the same with African countries. I think it's going to be better in the future. You said that things should not be used in the constructions. Okay, let's wait for the earthquake. As earthquakes do increase, precautions are going to be taken in Düzce. For instance, losses have decreased like 20%. Can I say something? I received a note. Announcement is made for a car. Okay, I'd like to say a few words if you allow me. Turkey has a huge steel capacity and steel production for a long time. In Erdemir, you have assumed a great position. You know this very well. These products, in terms of variety, is developed a lot. Unfortunately, there is quality issues here, and Erdemir should assume responsibility because it's the oldest steel producing company. However, they produce the easily sold products. But Kemal, there is this target. When you talk about production, unfortunately, it's not like that. There is a tonnage target. We go to Ankara to ministerial meeting, and let's say there is DIR meeting. In this DIR meeting, DIR meeting, this is the internal processing regime meeting. Production here is not supported with the sheet metal. So the raw material for the sheet metal is not produced in Turkey, so we have to make importation. After capacity increase, we have to think about this more and more. And it's not because we ate their dinner, but Çolakoğlu should be appreciated because of their effort. As the 80 X80, they try to do their best to produce these materials. We appreciate their effort, but if it's a structural problem, well, yes, two sides have confronted with problems and they have to take measures for it. And we started to work with them, and it's been a really problematic job. If you think of the tonnages that we produce, we were fighting with the planning department, etc., and with the support of exportation, tonnages have increased, and we then become free of this problem. I think they work with the automobile sector, so the triggering driving force is automotive sector. Well, yes. Let me give you the floor to the audience. Well, I'll continue with this as well. We'll move on, but I mean, your question is much more provocative, but they don't use a mic, that's why we can't hear them. Okay. In spite that we produce high amount of steel, but we still make steel importation. What is the reason for this steel importation in Turkey? Is it the pressure for being competitive, the advantages, or else is it because of the lack of the trustworthy relations between the producers and the consumers? Is it a good question, but you have to answer this question. Is it about being competitive? I guess Kemal says that. Is there a lack of trust for the sustenance of the relations? Let's say you give order, but in time, but you can't deliver it on time, for instance, you might say it from the stock. So there are some problems. But Kerem used to buy his sheet metal all the time. Well, by the way, importers, the domestic market users, they're all. Since 1994, actually, we've had experience. Of course, competition is really important. Competitiveness is an important factor. I mean, the pipe itself, if you are not able to export to X place with that price, then we have to find it for a more convenient price than that one. Well, actually, competitiveness is really important in that respect, but sometimes, I mean, we don't have such a commercial term the way here, because we talked about the cost differences as well. And here, our suppliers are really challenged also. South Korea, for instance, 60% of the natural gas, I mean, it is 60% cheaper, 50% in electricity. It's not that they are fighting against us via price. It's because they don't have that high cost. In Turkey, there are
we don't have a brand with prominent with its brand names or as value added products. Yes, we talk about our automotive sector, but well, the sizes that we desire. Yes, I mean, we have proceeded a lot in domestic markets, but there is the scale economy. Well, 1.3 million ton of vehicle production. B-carding is going to be used. I mean, when we go to special plates, well, the scale of economies starts to show itself. Yes, but with exports, you can do that with special qualities. It's not that easy for you to come up with these scales of economies with these exports numbers there. Logistics is also important in order for you to achieve a scales of economies. Well, planning, for instance, is another important thing for the sake of the country. We have to do certain things. Of course, we have to do that, but it's not that like BMW, for instance, Europe, Passat. You say B card in plate, sell it from here. No, I do not say that, but the producers here, we can sell that. It's not an easy work. And thirdly, the service problem is also an important factor. For instance, we always talk about cold rolling and plate. I mean, we are the most important users. We're continuously following the transportation performance. In 2021, the monthly transportation performance was 42% with our local suppliers. In 2022, it is 57%. So, with such numbers, figures, doing a material backup is really important. It is necessary, actually. Like I'm going to be giving you material for the body of the car, but not for the plate, for instance, or else like a battery. We cannot say that. I mean, it has to, and all of them have to be provided. There should be a regular transportation performance and also financing opportunities. For instance, you receive material from Japan with the 180 days with the financial conditions, financing conditions of Japan, but in Turkey, the financing cost is extremely high. So for that reason, quality input service. Why do we do import? Not for an OEM, for instance, galvanize. They are being imported because of these reasons, because of high costs that we have to bear in Turkey. Well, I think that we were making a mistake at the time in certain important projects, for instance, like the TANAP, for instance. I don't remember it quite well. Yes, the TANAP project, like in those kind of important projects, well, they couldn't actually get the material from Turkey during the TANAP project. For instance, it was $400, the hot roll material. And for projects, for the members of the players of this project, it was $375. But now we know that there is no such incentive. No such incentive. I mean, in the past, for instance, there were, in order to support certain things, projects, we used to do those things, like give incentives. Okay, yes, Mr. Ahmed. Well, first of all, priorities. You mentioned I've got a company that does exports, so I can give a more unbiased answer because each sector, for their own profit, of course, try to do their best, but I am out of the scope of this. I'm not an importer company as well. So Turkey from the 1990s, production was 10 million ton. Now it has shot up to 40 million ton. Capacity is 50 million ton. We have to do export. Our consumption is not that powerful. So the construction and steel and then the piping profile and cold galvanize. But within 3 to 5 years time, a hot capacity is going to be more enjoyed. Well, we had to import, of course, when consumption was high. Some of the import was because of necessity, but now there is no domestic demand. And we don't want import. So what should we do? Protectivism, this and that. Well, as a person who is not within the scope, I'm not an importer because what tariff code says, unfair competition is the only thing that we have to prevent. Because if we prevent unfair competition, all problems will be solved. Like $50, $100 is the dumping price. I mean, and they're able to sell here $50 less, $100 less, because there is no protectivism here. Is for low, galvanized, hot, cold. We make ourselves an open market, so everybody could dump this market. And by doing so, yes, in certain segments, maybe certain companies can do exports based on this cheap import. But if we prevent unfair competition in all products, like a Japanese, for instance, there was a conference, a Japanese company had come in. I asked their domestic price, it was $800. But for Turkey, it is $500. No, they said, and then he said that he was also selling domestically for $500. Instead of deteriorating the domestic market with a dumping price, they dump it to Turkey, for instance. For instance, they've got 50 tons extra. Instead of dumping their own domestic market, they dump Turkey. For instance, Uğur mentioned in the morning that they were going through an investigation in Europe, for instance. But here we don't do that. We undermine it. So cold, hot, galvanized, everybody is selling here cheap, and we all suffer like long. If we prevent unfair competition in our country, I am sure that everything will be sorted out. And about inward processing, well, with import processing, we need it for exports, of course. Like if it is 600 here, and if it is 500 abroad, we get it. We do import processing, and we sell it. And then with import processing, anti-dumping is not a solution. So if we do that, of course, all the imported products, 90% of them, I don't know the rate, but it comes with import processing. But that dumped product, if you do not prevent it with import processing, then you cannot solve this problem. So what I see is that for 20 years I've been doing this business. So what I see here is that we have to prevent unfair competition, but they're exporting what they process import. Yes, they can export, but I mean, we can we actually first of all have to prevent this unfair competition, as I said, and well, uh, our sector is well trained, and we are professionals. If there is a rentable business, we can do that. Nobody would do an investment making a mistake. I'm sure that they would do logical investment. So I do believe that solving the unfair competition is what we need. Yes. So taking the necessary precautions in import is what you want. Yes, exactly. Well, you are the hot plate producer, the giant in Turkey. Why haven't you actually made an investment in this area? Because this is totally to do with your profit, like 3.5 million ton. It is going to be 4.5 million ton hot plate production. We have invested a lot, and since our establishment, we've been dealing with this. And since we've established this facility, we've been blamed, but we've got a production experience. So
Kaliteden bahsediyoruz değil mi?
We're talking about quality, right? So in TANAP, so they convinced the government just for the sake of $50. $500 went to Chinese and the Korean people. Am I wrong? So if you had supported us back then, or else if you had supported us prior to that, then for TANAP, we would have had good quality producers. So what happened in TANAP, no matter what the price was, the offer of Euro side was accepted. In Turkey, we produce automobiles for $20,000. Then we import them for $40,000. So we discussed pipe exportation. Why? In order to make exportation, we wanted to be competitively advantageous in the exportation market. That's why we make importation. So if we sell our own sheet metal, then the pipe that is out of our sheet metal should be competitively advantageous. So if you buy it for $500, you export it for $550. Nothing changes actually. If your profit increases, that's okay. Then we make importation till the end. But I ask this question as well. Why Chinese people can't sell pipes? Why don't we import galvanized ones? Okay, let's protect ourselves, but let's do nothing for this part. If you do this, we can import galvanized pipes, cars, irons, but no salary increase would happen for the workers of our country. We can only talk about when or where to find $100 billion. Why the Americans prohibit this? Because they don't have employment problems. Without industry, there is no competition. Nothing happens. Okay. Maybe this is a wrong example from the USA. USA is an exporter company, but a country. We are an exporter country growing based on the exportation. Do we export Mustang or Ford Transit? Or does America have Mustang exportation like we have AGM exportation? We are, of course, thankful for the hot rolled producers. You are very precious to us, but you asked why we didn't make hot rolled investments. So we changed in the vertical integration. So we did what we knew in the rolled steel automobile sector, galvanized sector. We started with 300 tons and 500,000 steel production. And you did what you had known. You start with the liquid steel, and I don't want to be misunderstood. But if you had asked why you hadn't jumped in the steel, hot rolled steel production, please don't put the blame on us. Well, you're talking about galvanized Korea, for instance. We import They are galvanized steel for the automobile structure. Yes. Well, on the other side, if you can pipe to a place that we sell sheet metal, this is a really primitive perception, Urbe. I'm so sorry, but okay. We also sell pipe where you sell sheet metal, but there is a time difference. Your due dates are like a month or 2 months, but because of the steel sector fluctuations, the prices are also volatile. And the sheet metals are sold to different sectors. ST37 steel pipes that we sell with the country sheet metals, we are trying to be competing, and this it's not like the pipe is made. I don't think that your mentality is correct, so we have to have a detailed look over this issue. Okay, thank you. Internal processing regime is a project, is a regime triggered by the Minister of Trade. It's not only for steel sector, but for other products like in textile and food. Internal processing regime is valid, as I've stated before, and Turkey's exportation has come to this point thanks to this regime. Okay, on the other side, anti-dumping measures have been brought by the ministry to protect the local producers. We are against dumping, of course. Steel materials entering into Turkey should not be here with unfair competition. You can apply to Ministry of Trade, and they bring some tax margins. We are against the importation to Turkey with dumping, but internal processing regime lift is just a dream. That's it. It's not going to be lifted because it has brought benefits to Turkey. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Kemal. Well, we have come to the end, and there are further questions, but we don't have time. Okay, I need to ask the last question because we don't have time. Supply chain problems, geopolitical uncertainty, freight prices, and interest rate increase, inflation, we have discussed them. Let's say if the Russian-Ukrainian war comes to an end, what happens? There's sanctions on the markets. Let's say there is no war, whereas if it's war, we are accustomed to that. Kiev is bombarded from time to time. So how much does it take to be in the normal stage of the markets? How long does it take to be normalized? I'm talking for the markets. This is normal, yes. What's your estimation? I'd like to hear your average estimation. Okay, so what is coming to normal terms? The Ukrainian-Russian war is going to an end. If you think these sanctions are going to be lifted, so this is what I believe. All the expectations from Russian side is that minimum 5 years for these sanctions to be lifted. It's not like that, oh, tomorrow the sanctions are going to be lifted. Nobody has this expectation. 5 to 6 years, these sanctions minimum will go on. And after that, a normalization process can start. 5 years. It's not in the near term, no. No, it's not like that. Yes, this is normal because Russians want the Ukrainians to pay the price. Okay, Southeast Asia and exporters there are going to have some advantages. We said that our exportation to Asia would increase, but nothing happened. Yes, we made exportation to Asia in the previous years. Well, the question is that for us to become normal, when will China become normal? What is normal? To make profits, to make exportation. What is the normal state of China? What does it mean? Yeah, the COVID construction sector to reach to normal levels. Otherwise, it's not going to happen for us. Capacity utilization rate is 92%. Hussein told me it's 92. At least 5 years. Yes. You come. I agree with my friends. I don't think a speed recovery. I think it's not going to be more than 2 years. 2 years. Buying sheet metal in a cheaper price. I don't want to talk about it, but steel iron sector buys 75% of it from Turkey. I'm not saying it's cheap. Producers in Turkey sell us materials. Only 20-25% of it is imported from abroad because of the competitive advantage. Well, thank you. When Turkey become normal, you said after Ukrainian-Russian war is over, and you asked the definition of normal. One of the things affecting Turkey is about energy, as you all know, and energy crisis. Yes, there is energy crisis in Western countries, but I don't believe Turkey has energy crisis. 24% of electricity is generated out of natural gas. And if the energy is related to Russia, it's related to natural gas entry, and we haven't experienced problems. We haven't experienced problems as the Western countries had experienced. So, what is the reason of the high price sales of the electricity? This is the state policy. This is not about war. This is actually a subvention policy. Other gaps of the state are filled in with the electricity price. They just use it as an opportunity. In Turkey, there is one single electricity sales price, but producers have different prices. So electricity price is 3,900. This is the megawatts average, but the wind generators will have 1,000, and natural gas producers will have 4,000. The receipts is 40%. Yes, according to my calculation, I hope this is a miscalculation because this is a striking number. In electricity, 40% more payment is made by the industrialists. We pay extra 40% when there is a cost of the material, right? If the electricity is a product, it has its cost. And there's the difference between the cost and the sales is 40% here. This doesn't go to the producer, generator. The thing that is told to the electricity generator is that you're not going to lose money. And we'll use the highest authority possible. This is what the ministry said. What is the definition of a non-losing sector in Turkey? Steel iron sector, can we say that? You're not going to lose any money. This is not something in the capitalistic system. No. But in Turkey, just one single sector, electricity generation system, is supported. They are given the guarantee that they're not going to lose any money. So, what is the efficiency of a sector which is supported? If they are inefficient, we will go bankrupt. But if an electricity generator is inefficient, then the state supports them. This 40% is not taxation. So all of us here, we make investment and we don't make our investments just for the thinking of 40% subvention possibility of the state. Natural gas, you pay 40% more for natural gas compared to your next door neighbor producer. Since the very beginning, it's been wrong. There is unnecessary electricity, natural gas prices. In the past, they have been subsidized and they were on the shoulders of the public and the state. In the past, the other sectors paid the burden, but right now, iron steel industry has to pay for extra 40%. So it's like $500 million for steel industry. $500 million is lost for the competitive advantage of steel industry owners. So this is taken from the pocket of the steel industry to support potash and we compensate this price. So us as engineers, we know that there is this price of the cheap electricity, and right now we pay for the price. But this is not proper 35%, 40% inflation. This is not proper. We have not included in our calculations $130 is the megawatt, but in Germany it is 92 euros. Thank you so much. Okay, I joined the session. Oops. No, he has already given his comment. Faruk, we don't have time.
Tamam şimdi şimdi
Well, in developed countries, in Europe, this issue has been resolved. What they did was that against dumping and governmental incentive, they took stringent measures. And just like our colleague here has mentioned, there are certain products which are not produced in Turkey. So what are we going to do in that respect was a question. I'm not opposed to import, of course. But if it is not manufactured in Turkey, then there is a solution to that. But if we've started producing that product domestically via quota or else with other means, we can protect that producers. Lowering the customs duty to zero, but adopting anti-dumping measures is the solution to everybody, according to me. Okay, thank you. Well, distinguished guests, we've come to the end of our panel. I would like to thank our panelists for sharing information, and everybody are here to have been here with us. Thank you.